Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited, and I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. We have been contacted by a number of people by phone, by text, by email, asking for our initial trust package email. And a lot of our existing clients are wanting to make last-minute changes in anticipation of the reinstitution and revaluation of the Iraqi Dinar. So we've spent a lot of time doing that. The only reason I bring this up is because there are still a great number of people that I need to contact. And I just want to let you know we're on the job, and we will, right after this call, get right back on the phone and or respond by email and get the information that you need, answer the questions that you have. And for those that want to make changes, we will get those to the paralegals and try to get that done just as soon as possible. Today is August 16th. We're going to try to do a full call here. I hope the phone doesn't keep beeping for people trying to get in. It's kind of disturbing when that happens, but it is what it is. That's part of the job. For the last few weeks, I had been talking about a window for the reinstitution of the dinar. At the very least, maybe one more increase in the rate of the dinar and drop of the dollar against the dinar by August 15th. That did not happen for a number of reasons. We saw a pause in the monetary policy reforms, having largely to do with corruption and the parallel market. There was also challenges to certain amendments of the budget. So I believe all of these issues have been resolved, and we'll get into where I think all of this is going. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the sale or purchase of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we believe to be most relevant. There is a lot going on in terms of in-country in Iraq and globally as well, and it's, from our perspective, it's all good news. There is a black thread in this silver cloud that we're floating on right now, and I'll get into that a little bit. It's a little bit unfortunate that one of the things that's contributed to the increase in the value of the dinar will unfortunately be in my opinion, and I don't think I'm overstating it, the near demise of the U.S. dollar globally, and we'll get into that as well. But there's a lot going on in Iraq. We've seen the release yet of another package. The instructions for the budget are being released in a series of packages. Rather than trying to release all of the things that are involved in a 3-year budget, they're sort of targeting different sectors and releasing information with regard to that particular sector, that issue. But again, we've seen the pause of the monetary reform, Sudani dealing with corruption, primarily having to do with the exchange companies. With regard to the budget, there are other issues as well. There's the HCL and Article 140. These two issues have been agreed upon, although they have not as yet been implemented. As I mentioned earlier, the amendments that were challenged by the coalition framework and that crowd have been adjudicated and set aside, so that's pretty much over with. With regard to the World Trade Organization, while Iraq is not officially a member of the World Trade Organization, they are a de facto member. It was the World Trade Organization that's really pushing for their membership. They are still, dotting I's, crossing T's in terms of negotiation. And the last hurdle, of course, will be the completion of the monetary reform. So it's not a done deal, but it's well on its way. And again, I would refer to Iraq as a de facto member because of everything that's been transpiring. Meanwhile, Soudani has been on a campaign to clean house in Iraq. He's leaving no stone unturned. He shut down the corrupt exchange companies that are, utilizing sort of an illegal arbitrage to try to squeeze money between the difference of the official rate and the parallel market rate. He's made arrests of a lot of these corrupt officials. He's even arrested the caretaker Prime Minister Kazemi, who actually didn't do a bad job as the caretaker Prime Minister, but unfortunately he's been accused of embezzlement, a substantial amount of currency, and we'll get into that in a little more detail. I think what is important, although it's not talked about, there are two individuals that have been relatively silent right now. One is Maliki, and he's been bad news for 20 years. But his silence says to me that he just out of bullets. He just can't come up with another way to stop what's going on. Not only the reinstitution of the dinar and Iraq's emergence as a sovereign nation, but also the corruption that he brought to the country in any number of ways. Another person that's silent right now is Sadr. And Sadr, of course, is an individual that wants to see the sovereignty of Iraq, a standalone nation not beholden to Iran or any other nation with their own global currency. So his silence to me means he's relatively satisfied with the direction and the pace of what's happening in country. Soudani has also seized the assets of a number of corrupt officials. He announced the release of a new package that has to do with infrastructure projects, which is very, very important. And he had a recent meeting with the ambassador of the United States. He made a couple of comments pertaining to that meeting, which are very important. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that they say are sufficiently ambivalent that they can mean a couple of different things. But I think the comments that Soudani made are very telling, and I don't think there's multiple inferences about what was meant. The first comment was made was that, quote, in coming days, we will take care of the citizens and return to them their money. Well, he didn't say in years or months or even weeks. He said in coming days. And he also said he would return to them their money. Well, they have their money. They have the Iraqi dinar. They've de-dollarized. What they don't have is the value of the currency in terms of its purchasing power or its value against other currencies. So that's clearly what Soudani is referring to. He also said the stability of the dinar. Now, when you use the word stability, I think he means the problem that they've had up to this point with the multiple currency system and the parallel rate being different than the official rate. But he said the stability of the dinar will bring the final recovery. Well, recovery means to regain something that was lost. Again, they didn't lose the dinar. What they lost was its value. So to me, recovery means returning it to its rate when it went into a program rate, which was $3.22. So we have to take Soudani at his word and that he's serious, because all of his other actions clearly indicate he's on a mission and he is very serious. Now, the CBI also released a statement saying that they expect a major increase in the dinar very shortly. Well, that could mean increase in value, say to 1,000 dinar per U.S. dollar. It could mean the reinstituted rate. It could even mean a slight premium over the dollar to ensure the purchasing power in country and to ensure that when other nations come into Iraq to make purchases, they have a reason to convert to the dinar. Also, the CBI talked about the release of budget funds to the Unified Treasury Account. Now, the Unified Treasury Account is a mechanism where in the past they have had different accounts to fund different sectors. But, of course, that was complicated. It involved more people. And, again, they're concerned about corruption and some bad players. So by creating the Unified Treasury Account, it's much more easily managed. They can track the funds, and there are fewer people involved in these transactions. So, again, it's security and it's an anti-corruption approach. Now, the Minister of Finance also released a statement. It seems everyone's releasing statements right now regarding the closure of bank accounts with a zero or negative balance. Now, we constantly talk about the project to delete the zeros. The deletion of the zeros is the absolute last phase of the collection of the zeros. And that's where a lot of the corruption's been. A lot of individuals, Kazemi is one example, transitioning the provisional 3-0 currency out of the country where they can take advantage of the exchange rate. So the government of Iraq is doing everything it can to collect as much of the 3-0 currency as they can prior to the deletion of the zeros to minimize the amount of corruption that's involved. And, of course, the worst-case scenario would be terrorist organizations that could get a hold of the currency as well. But the closure of the banks that threat really has teeth for the citizens, because if their account is closed, and remember, they're on the electronic platform now. If those accounts are closed, that means they don't get their salaries, they don't get their retirement pay, and they don't get the HCL distributions. So this means that they are incentivized to gather up whatever provisional 0 currency they have under their mattress or wherever and get it into the bank, not only to open the bank, but with the knowledge that that will be exchanged for the new national currency. It will allow them to reopen their account, and it will allow them to receive, again, the salaries, the retirement pay, and the HCL distributions. Now, Iraq can enjoy, and this is another statement from Soudani, that Iraq will enjoy complete energy independence in 3 years. Well, is it a coincidence that they have a 3-year budget? Because it's in that 3-year budget that they're going to accomplish complete independence through the infrastructure projects to rebuild the road system, projects to rebuild 19 new cities, projects to rebuild the electric grid, projects to develop the extraction of oil, assistance European nations, Germany and Italy, to mention two. France is to assist them with the refinement of the oil. And, of course, Soudani just pushed through the plan for the new trucking system so that the oil can be delivered. And remember, economics is about the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. And oil is the most important product produced, at least for the time being, in Iraq. And so he's put in place everything necessary for the extraction, refinement, distribution, and consumption of oil. Also, he's been talking about, over this 3-year period, the development of the import-export business and tourism. So all of these things are extremely important as we proceed to the reinstitution of the dinar. Now, what we're witnessing right now and why I'm so bullish on what's happening with the dinar, and by the way, another statement that Soudani made and Alak made having to do with resolving the currency issues in September. Well, I've said in the past that the 3 months over the last 100 years that currencies have reinstituted or at least increased substantially in value have been January, April, and September, largely because countries either operate on a calendar year or a fiscal year. But September is looking very good. But we're witness really to a perfect geopolitical storm for the reinstitution or revaluation of the Iraqi dinar for a number of reasons. And why we're in a position to make a very substantial profit on the reinstitution, even at a conservative rate. Now, the reasons are as follows. The IQD currently is in a program rate, courtesy, of course, of the actions of Saddam Hussein. But globally, we're in the stage of transition to Basel compliance. Now, Basel is a 5-stage process and protocol globally where we are transitioning from fiat-based to commodity-backed currencies. Of those 5 phases, we're at Basel 4. Basel valuations for currencies are no longer going to be fiat-based, meaning based on the estimates of a given country, but will be based on the known natural resources in that country and the ability to bring those resources to market. Once again, it can be argued that per square mile, Iraq could be one of the richest, if not the richest countries in the world. And what we're witnessing with the 3-year budget is the ability through the infrastructure projects to ensure that those natural resources can be brought to market domestically or internationally. But here's another very important issue. On August 22nd, which is about a week from now, the BRICS nations will release their global gold-backed reserve currency. What this will unfortunately do from the standpoint of the United States is that this currency will probably replace the U.S. dollar as the number 1 world reserve currency. There's already been stiff competition with the ruble and the yen, but there are close to 50 nations that want to enter the BRICS. All of these nations come in with their natural resources, with the ability to bring those resources to market, to stabilize, to increase the commodities backing the BRICS nations' gold-backed reserve currency. That necessarily means that the dollar will have to lose value. And, of course, we did it to ourselves. We've printed nearly $8 trillion in the last going on 3 years. They've been on a spending spree. They're printing money. It's losing its value. It's not only losing its value in terms of purchasing power in the United States for the exchange of goods and services, because that's really what inflation is. It isn't the increase in the intrinsic value of goods and services. It's a decrease in the purchasing power of the dollar. So we basically lit the dollar on fire. We did it ourselves, or at least a bunch in Washington right now did it. I don't know if we can recover. We certainly couldn't take 4 more years of Bidenomics. That's for damn sure. The issue is, to get that guy out of there, can we fix this? And at this point, I don't know. But the loss in the value of the dollar will push the value of the dinar up. So when we go to the bank to do our exchange and we exchange it for U.S. dollars, those U.S. dollars will have been deflated. We will not have the purchasing power that we would have had even 2 years ago. But, of course, from our perspective, if you've got a net worth of $850,000 and then you go to the bank and exchange 10 million dinar, let's just say for $1, $10 million may not be worth $10 million, but that's a lot more money. It's a lot more net worth than you had before you went to the bank. So for those of us that have currencies, we're still going to be in a very good place. It's just unfortunate that for friends, family, and the American people, the dollar is circling the drain internationally and even domestically. And it's really a shame to see that, but we did it to ourselves. We have no one to blame but ourselves. We elected people that make bad decisions, and now we have to live with them. It's unfortunate. So that's where we find ourselves. Everything's moving in the right direction. We've reached a point of no return. There's no way, given the actions that have been taken, the comments being made by Soudani, by ministers within his cabinet, by the CBI, the international community that's working out all kinds of contracts. None of this makes any sense at all with the Iraqi dinar and a program rate. The math just doesn't work. So, in my opinion, we've reached a point of no return. I was hopeful that we would at least see the dinar at 1,000 per dollar by now, if not reinstituted at 1-to-1. I've explained why that, in my opinion, that didn't occur. But we're being told now that the new time frame is sometime in September. That does make sense based on the history of revaluations. Let's hope, in fact, that that's the case. That being the case, people are running out of time to get their family asset protection trust enforced prior to the revaluation of these currencies. It's important that you understand why you need to get your affairs in order and a trust in place. If you are in a position to receive a windfall profit, and that's what we're looking at right now, I want to talk about the benefits of establishing our family asset protection trust as an American citizen, but specifically for those of you that have currencies. First, by establishing our family asset protection trust package, you're going to preserve your privacy and your anonymity. No one will know your net worth, your actual holdings, because the assets within an irrevocable trust package are sealed. Now, that's even more important if you're in a position as a dinarian to expect a substantial increase in your net worth. By assigning the currencies to the trust before they revalue, that means that's another increase in wealth that the general public will not be aware of. And it's frankly no one's business what you possess, what your net worth is, and all of that. But if for any reason someone wants that information, a private investigator or forensic accountant for a fee can get that information. But that's not the case with the trust. Now, individuals set up things like LLCs, sub-S corporations, family limited partnerships, and the like. But those are statutory in nature, and that information is readily available. But that's not the case with the trust. The trust is sealed. The only way anyone can pierce the trust is if they go to court and can show cause, show that you've committed some sort of a fraud, and we need to know what's in that trust. But unlike these other assets I mentioned, the trust is not registered with the city, municipality, county, state, or federal government. It's a private contract that you establish. You put a fence around your finances, and it's no one's business. Second issue you'd want to set up these trusts is it'll allow you to avoid IRS scrutiny. The assets within the trust will generate income to you, and that's reportable from a tax standpoint, but that's a simple thing to do. But the more complex transactions are in the trust, and they're disassociated from you. The trust operates under an EIN number. But specifically here, in the case of the currencies, if you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers are going to spit out an audit because the magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings is going to spit out that audit. And that can be a very time-consuming process. You could also result in a 6-year audit. However, if you've assigned these currencies to the trust, there's less than a 15% chance of an audit. But even if the IRS determines to audit the trust, they're not auditing you. They're auditing the trust. And they can't do a 6-year audit because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currencies to family and friends. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the lump sum after the exchange, that can be done outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you have individuals that you're hesitant to give this lump sum to, they could be minor children, kids in college, people with disabilities, someone that you don't think is particularly responsible or has other issues, you can gift to them through a gift sub-trust that we created within our trust package. So by gifting through this gift sub-trust, you will have control of their gifted funds, meaning you will not have to pay the federal gift tax for making the gift. But because the funds are within this sub-trust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's designed in such a way as to allow you to avoid the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. Ordinarily, probate can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But if anyone challenges either you, the estate, or any of your heirs, this estate could be in court for years, and your heirs will have limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the litigation is resolved. Then there's the federal estate tax, the tax that's assessed for the transfer of the estate to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 65%. However, if your currencies and the balance of your estate are in this trust, when you pass away, there will be no probate. No one will know the size of your estate, who the heirs are, or how much they each stand to inherit, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust is for some very specific asset protection benefits, one pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust will allow you to circumvent the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. Very simply, under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you actually own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. I'll give you a simple example. You have 10 million dinar that you purchased for $10,000. Transfer those currencies to our trust pre-RV. They subsequently revalue, and let's say conservatively for $1. So now you've got $10 million in your trust. Well, you can't be sued for $10 million. You can only be sued for $10,000 because that's all the currency was worth, the property, when you transferred it out of title to the trust. That's why you utilize a trust. That's one of the many reasons you utilize a trust. That's why this trust is superior to any other entity that you could utilize. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. So if you're involved, say, in a car accident, or you have a rental property and someone is injured in your rental property, they attempt to sue you. They can only go after the asset directly involved, the car, the rental property, etc. Because all of the other assets are singularly put in other sub-trusts, under the law, that plaintiff would have no standing to go after a separate trust. They could only pursue the asset that they were involved in. So the trust package works like a commercial barge where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secured due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your family asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. And this would be the case with any asset that you have that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. Now, our trust package was initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and financial assets like bank and investment accounts post-RV, one gift sub-trust if you wish to gift currencies to family and friends and manage the post-RV proceeds, which sub-trust can be converted to a standard sub-trust, and then 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. In addition, you can always add sub-trust post-RV if you need to. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But when we decided to work with Dinarians, we knew that price tag would be unaffordable for too many. So basically, by simplifying the trust package, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. Now, there are several ways you can pay for that. Pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500. That's not possible. We even have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which would basically offset our initial cost just to produce and deliver your trust package to you. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs globally, then any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust enforced pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place prior to the revaluation of these currencies for the reasons we've discussed here today. I'm going to go to the Q&A here. So if anyone has any questions, I'm moving quickly today because, again, we have so many people contacting us, and I've had people call me 5 times in the same day. So when they want an answer, and I'm doing my best to get that to them. So let's go to the Q&A here. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I want to make a couple of comments here. First, under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family situations where you really need and want control, but the situation is taken over and you don't have that control. Things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are, of course, business losses, investment losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a family asset protection trust package. But particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value, we at Trust Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives, both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Now, I would strongly suggest you contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. It does contain everything you need if you wish to proceed with the establishment of your family asset protection trust package, but you're under no obligation to do so. The package has a lot of information about us, about trust, about the currencies. You can review the package. Contact us by phone or email if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you in every way, and there will be no consultation fee. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. And our phone service is 307-274-4122. Again, contact us by phone or email. If you wish to have one of our packages, we'll get it out as quickly as we can. Review the package. Contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. Everything is in the package if you wish to proceed. Let's go to the Q&A here. Our first caller is area code 810. 810. Go ahead.
Hi, Jim. This is Diane.
Hi, Diane.
Quick question. Last week, I believe it was, you said something about there were 3 states that that you would be able to, I think they were having their own.
Yes. There are 3 states that are working on establishing their own state digital currency: Texas, Arizona, and Montana. I don't know exactly how far along they've gone. The reason I think that's important is for those of us that establish these trusts, you could establish trust bank accounts in those states. The currency is a digital currency, but the point is you'll be issued a credit card and ATM card at those banks, so you can operate using their currency. Even though it's a digital currency, the benefit to it is unlike the central bank digital currency, there's no credit score system and there's no intrusion into your financial purchases, which, in my opinion, are none of the damn government's damn business. The central bank digital currency really annoys me because what they're saying is because it's digital, they possess it, it's theirs, and they just let us use it. And in return for letting us use it, we have to forfeit our Fourth Amendment right to privacy. Well, that really that galls me, and so anything we can do to avoid the central bank digital currency, even if it's more cumbersome, to me makes sense.
Okay. Well, that's all I had. Thank you so much for that, Jim.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Our next caller is area code 80180. Go ahead. 801, are you there? Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, this is Clay. How are you?
Okay, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing just fine. I have a couple of different questions. Do you think that with the BRICS nations coming on as strong as they are, that August 22nd date, is that to establish their currency, I think you mentioned, or is it just to establish that they are there, functional, and ready to deflate the dollar?
My understanding is that they're functional, but let's assume that what they release on August 22nd is a series of dates, what they're going to do. That should be sufficient to plummet the dollar, because combine the domestic spending and printing going on in this country with the union between China and Russia, and now creating the BRICS nations, and there's like 40 more nations that want to get in there. United States hegemony, it's over. It's over. And of course that can only be good for other currencies. And if you're a country like Iraq that's so rich and we're entering Basel IV, that currency is going to be valuable. The United States is going to end up perhaps holding on to their dinar to use as a gold derivative because the country's so rich. We're a pretty rich country too, but our monetary and fiscal policies are so bad that we destroyed the dollar ourselves. It's really disheartening, but we have no one to blame but ourselves.
So to say that the fact that the U.S. has gone Basel 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, based on a commodities-based value, and the BRICS are going with a gold-based value, I would think the gold itself, having its own intrinsic value, would plummet the dollar and anybody else that's on a Basel type status. Would you not say so?
Commodity backing does include gold. In other words, some countries will probably, they'll have all of their commodities inclusive of gold. But a lot of countries, if you'll notice, even central bank countries with fiat currencies are buying up gold as much as they can in anticipation of what's going to happen. Now, to the extent that they can't buy gold, what they could do is hold other reserve currencies that are gold-backed. So it's a derivative. And so maybe countries are going to do that as well. But, the genie's out of the bottle, and the fiat currencies are on their way out, and commodity-backed, Basel-compliant currencies are going to be the coin of the realm.
Okay, that makes sense. Did you say commodity-backed basil, or did you mean gold-backed?
Commodity-backed. When a country announces that its currency is gold-backed, what they're saying is our gold holdings are what's going to back our currency to the extent whatever the gold is.
Okay.
Commodity-backed, a country like Iraq, gold, silver, platinum, all of the other assets that they have industrial metals, they have precious metals, they have what was the other thing that of course the oil they have, and it's a very sweet crude. It has very low sulfur content. In the case of Iraq, here's Iraq. Its petroleum has the lowest sulfur content, which means it's much more easily refined, which means it's in demand. At the same time, Iraq has one of the world's largest sulfur reserves. So while their oil is sulfur-free, they still have sulfur reserves. Sulfur is necessary for the production of sulfuric acid, which is used in dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of industrial applications. So it's just an embarrassment of wealth. Well, that will be reflected in their currency. It's got to.
Okay, so, and this is from my own education, but when you say gold-backed, it doesn't mean just gold. It means derivatives of gold as well. Because I'm wondering how these countries can just move over to the BRICS nations. There's got to be some kind of qualifications to do so, right?
Well, the countries that will use reserve currencies like the Iraqi Dinar are countries that either don't have any gold reserves themselves, or, the United States, we know we can't get an audit of the Fed. We can't get an audit of our actual gold reserves, which, it just bothers me that the Congress, it always gets stymied. Whenever they have a vote to do the audits, it always gets stopped, and it gets stopped by the same people. So, and of course, it's the same people that like the central bank system. It's Keynesian economics where they just print money. They say, well, we're going to spend all this money, whatever they're doing. They're buying votes, they're doing this, they're doing that. So they just go to the Fed and say, just print us some more money. Well, once you're Basel compliant, the amount of money that you can print is limited on the natural known resources that you have. They just don't have an open account where they can just print money, which is one of the reasons why the only way we could get around it probably after what we've done, we're almost 33 trillion national debt. They don't want to audit their reserves. So one of the ways they can at least say on paper is, okay, well, look, we got 5 trillion dinar, and, based on the known commodities in that country, we have a derivative value in our reserves in our treasury. So I don't like it, but it's probably what they're going to do.
Do you think, Jim, that on the 22nd of August, these guys are just going to come out and market the BRICS, or are they going to open it up for membership? And if so, is Iraq going to be prepared to do that at that time? They can't get in there with a program rate, right?
They're already marketing it, and yeah, you're right. Well, no country can probably get in there with a program rate because once again, we're talking about it's got to be a back currency. Iraq's got all this wealth, so there's no way that dinar is worth 1/1500th of a dollar. I mean, just no way. So that's not going to fly. The fact that Iraq is in a program rate has nothing to do with the known natural resources in the country. It's got to do with Saddam Hussein. It's got to do with the food for oil program that he tried to circumvent, his assault on the Kuwait, all of that. That was punishment. That had nothing to do with the underlying values. So, I think it's the same with the World Trade Organization. They're just sitting there waiting to see the reinstitution. That's why I said they're a de facto member of the World Trade Organization. They, with a wink and a nod, they know as soon as this happens, they can join any group they want for any reason they want.
It's been suggested, Jim, that these but these court holdups with the Peshmerga wanting more money out of the Baghdad for the salaries for their people, what have you, that this is holding up the RV, RI, whatever it is, and the court needs to go in and make a ruling on that as to whether we honor that with the Peshmerga and Kurdistan or we cancel it. But if they do honor it, then obviously the budget would have to be amended. If the budget's amended, don't you think that's where the RV is going to come from?
I don't think that in and of itself is going to affect the process. That's been going on for 20 years. I guess one perspective would be that could kind of gum up the works, but when you look at the sum total of everything they've done, I don't think that in and of itself is going to stop anything. I mean, the court could even put a hold on it and say, will be considered down the road for all we know. But like I said, when you can look at the sum total of everything that's happening, I just don't think that's a deal maker or breaker.
Well, there's got to be some type of trigger to get these guys to get up off the pot or do something. And it seems like once again that X factor is the HCL.
Yeah. Well, that could be the linchpin to everything. And one side could just concede just to get it, because there's so many other benefits. They could make a concession. They could say, okay, we're going to phase that in. I mean, there's any number of things that can happen. But again, in the sum total of everything that's happening, I just don't see that as a deal breaker.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jim. I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Next caller is area code 208. That's 208. Go ahead.
Yes, Jim. This is Greg in Idaho. How are you?
Yes, sir, Greg. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you. Appreciate your call this morning. My question is specifically in reference to the assignment of pre-valued currencies in the trust. I'm looking at that form as we speak, and what it comes down to is how specific do we need to be, in your opinion, when we put in information about the IQD? Do we need to show?
All you need to basically what the assignment form says is any pre-valued currencies in my possession or our possession or that we should subsequently acquire is hereby assigned to the trust. It's an open-ended in-kind assignment, which is why there's a line there. You only put the various currencies you have, not the amounts.
Okay, so I don't need to show specific dates that each batch was purchased.
Nothing.
How much it was. I can just say Iraqi Dinar, and it's good enough.
You can say in my form says Iraqi Dinar, Vietnamese Dong, Indonesian Rupiah, and Zimbabwe Zim. That's all it says. Doesn't say any amounts. Doesn't say when they were purchased. It's just any and all of such currencies are hereby assigned to my trust. That's all that's necessary.
Got it. Excellent. Thanks for the clarification, Jim. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Our next caller is area code 813. That's 813. Go ahead.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for taking my call. I need your advice on something, and this goes sort of back to the guy that you just talked to. A local tax attorney told me that if I transfer dinar into an irrevocable trust, that the capital gains clock starts over from the date of the transfer, but that if I transfer dinar into a revocable trust or sub-S or LLC, that I have 100% control and power over. The date of for capital gains is the date that I purchased the dinar. What do you have to say about that?
First of all, that's assuming that it's going to be taxed at capital gain rate. While 980.82 and publication 525 refer to the gain as cap gain, I think it's a good chance it's going to be ordinary income. Number one. Number two, by transferring it to an irrevocable trust, the benefits that you have by virtue of an irrevocable trust are far outweigh the potential differential from the treatment of a cap gain in a revocable versus an irrevocable trust. Plus, remember, with a revocable trust, there is no privacy or asset protection. It's basically the same thing as direct ownership. As a matter of fact, the revocable trust will operate under your Social Security number, whereas the irrevocable trust will operate under a separate EIN number. So if I were looking at it strictly from that one narrow perspective, I guess you could make an argument like that. But again, in the sum total of everything, given the difference between an irrevocable and a revocable, you got to go with the irrevocable trust.
Right. So I understand the benefit of the irrevocable, but I just wanted to clarify that the date of purchase will be the date that it's transferred into the irrevocable, not the date I bought it back in 2009.
Yeah, but I guess you could, if you assign the currencies to the, okay, I probably get in trouble for saying this. You have the currencies. You assign them to the trust. All right, you've assigned them on paper. You haven't actually transferred them to the trust. Now, if you proceed and do the exchange within the trust, then you're right on the cap gain. But you could theoretically assign them to the trust, but still not put them in the trust in order to take advantage of the beneficial capital gains right through the revocable trust. You would actually be covering yourself on both ends, but even by doing that, there's no way I would use a revocable trust in this situation over an irrevocable because, again, you could only be taxed in the irrevocable trust for the value of the currencies at the time of the assignment. In a revocable trust, you could be sued for the whole enchilada. So,
I understand those benefits.
Yeah, I understand the point, but that's not a reason for me to use a revocable trust at all, for me personally. Okay.
One other quick question. I'm in Florida. This same attorney said that self-settled irrevocable trusts are not valid in Florida, not used in Florida. I know you said this is not registered anywhere, so where is he coming from on that?
Self-settled irrevocable trusts are good in all 50 states where we're concerned because we operate under our civil litigation system, we operate on something called choice of law, which means irrespective of what state we live in, we can utilize the benefits of another state. So, for example, if you wanted to set up an LLC, I might suggest Nevada. If you wanted to set up a sub-S corporation, I might suggest Delaware. As a matter of fact, all of our car companies are physically located in Michigan, but their corporate offices are all in Delaware for that reason. In the case of a trust like ours, we utilize Wyoming for a number of reasons. As a matter of fact, it's kind of irritating. Every once in a while we get these trolls that listen to our calls, and then they say things, and they say goofy things like, well, your Wyoming trust doesn't work if you don't have a Wyoming trustee. Well, that's not true. They don't understand how it works. But if you're in Florida, we've got lots of clients. As a matter of fact, we have a couple of attorneys that have trusts with us that are in Florida, and I've never heard that. Now, I'm going to look that up, but I don't believe that's the case. Now, there may be some Florida banks that won't allow you to use a self-settled irrevocable trust, but how can the state have a law that says you cannot utilize a self-settled? It's a legal contract. How can they say you can't have a legal? It would be like saying you and I can't have a loan. I can't borrow money from you personally if we live in Florida. That makes no sense to me. But, of course, having said that, I'm going to make a couple of calls and see what's going on. But I can assure you we have a lot of clients in Florida that have our trust. So this guy brought up two things that tell me, for whatever reason, he doesn't like self-settled irrevocable trusts, frankly.
Probably. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate all you do, and I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. Take care. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to make that call, and I'm going to get clarification on that point. Our next caller is area code 805. That's 805. Go ahead.
Good morning, Jim. Another great call. I really appreciate you breaking down the explanation on the various benefits of the trust, like the gifting trust. Now, I do have a question on that, and that is, this gifting trust, that has to be in place before any revaluation, doesn't it?
Correct. It's pre-RV gifting. You need to make the gift pre-RV to avoid the federal gift tax. But if you're gifting to the trust versus directly to the individual, you not only avoid the federal gift tax, but you have control of the post-RV proceeds.
Okay. Now, I have already gifted with gifting letters to a fair number of people, and I'm wondering, if I wanted to put those people in the gifting trust, what would I do to modify these gifting letters, or can I do that to put it in the trust instead?
First of all, did you give them the letter?
No, I have not given them anything yet.
Good. Don't.
Possession-wise.
Then you've got no problem. All you need to do, if you decide to set up the gift subtrust, you send us an email. You give us your name. You give us the name of your master trust, and you tell us you want to create the gift subtrust. You will get a PayPal credit card invoice for $160, which is the fee, paralegal fee, to set that trust up. You should have it within a week. When you get that, included with the trust is a gifting letter. And in that letter, you will simply itemize who you're gifting and how much of each currency. Once those documents are executed, the gift subtrust is enforced. The gifts have been made pre-RV. Then after the revaluation, basically, and if you'll review the exchange protocol you should already have, you go to the bank, you'll negotiate your exchange. All of the money will go into the trust bank account that will be established that day at that bank. You will then go back about a week or so later when that money, you can remove all that money if you wanted, with the gift subtrust, create accounts for those people and transfer the USD to the individual accounts within the gift subtrust.
Okay, super. Now, what do I do with the gifting letters that I already have? I had them notarized.
It doesn't matter. If you're not going to use them, throw them away.
Okay.
Hang on to them. I would hang on to them until you get your gift subtrust done. And as a matter of fact, I would just hang on to them. It's a good idea to hang on to them. If you don't want to use them, you don't have to. But if for any reason you decide to, at least you'll have them.
Okay, super. All right, very good. Thank you very much. I'll get that email out to you.
One last point. I have about 15 recipients within my gift subtrust, and none of them have an earthly idea about what I'm doing or that I've gifted them anything. I'm going to sit them down either collectively or, 3 or 4 at a time, hand them the envelope, explain to them what I've done, explain to them that the money is in the gift subtrust, and they're all in different situations. Someone may need help to buy a car. Someone may need a down payment for a home. Someone may just want to supplement their income. Someone might say, hey, just, hey, Dad, or whomever it is, let it ride, and I'll let you know if I need anything. You know what I'm saying? So, that's the way I'm going to do it. But it's a good idea to not tell people that you're gifting, because if anything changes, your relationship with them, circumstances or anything, then that could create a problem.
Right. Okay, now how about the investment side of it? Do you have to keep it totally separate during the investment portion?
Yes. If you're gifting to different people, then it can get cumbersome, but I'm doing what I'm doing because I have a very large family and I have some people I want to help. So, that's just why I'm doing it the way. What I will probably do, to be honest with you, I have enough currency that I could hire someone to say, look, just handle this, okay? Bring me the paperwork to be signed, but you have a general idea what I'm trying to do with these individuals. You handle this, and I'll pay you quarterly. I'll figure all that out, when the time comes.
Okay. Now,
the important thing was to make the gift pre-RV.
Yes. Okay, the next thing is, let's say 95% of my trust would be philanthropic. Is there anything that I should be doing now to make it better as far as taxes, etc.?
Yes. If I were you, I would not try to make philanthropic gifts through the Family Asset Protection Trust. That's a personal family asset protection trust. Business entities and philanthropic entities should be established post-RV. As a matter of fact, after the revaluation, that's when you're going to want to establish these things to offset whatever the tax liability is going to be. Now, one other suggestion is this. Some people are setting up something called a charitable remainder trust. I'll give you an example of how. Let's say you had 10 million dinar, and you decided that you wanted to give $2 million to a given charity. So you would establish the charitable remainder trust, and that money upon your death, your demise, would then go to that charity. Of course, you can always gift them out of the cash flow from your family trust, but you set this special trust up, and the corpus, the principal, upon your death will go to that charity. During your lifetime, all of the income generated from that charitable trust is yours tax-free. So here's a way you can generate income, tax-free income, and still have a bequeath, a gift to give to the charity. Now, I'm not saying that would necessarily work for you, but that's an example of something that can be done post-RV. But that is a post-RV issue.
Okay, super. Now, you're going to be having gatherings on this, aren't you?
After the reinstitution of Dinar and Country, our calls are going to deal with all this kind of stuff because we won't be marketing the trust.
Okay, super. Okay, looking forward to that. And I'll get this other email off to you quickly again. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, take care.
Good day.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Our next caller is area code 757. That's 757. Go ahead.
Hey, how you doing, Jim? This is Michael. The question I have is pertaining to the irrevocable trust revenue ruling 2023-2 by the IRS. Could you explain that to me a little bit?
No, I can't. You have to tell me what the ruling is.
Okay, it says it's called Revenue Ruling 2023-2, and it's, from what I'm reading, it's stating that when you pass your beneficiaries, it'll be taxed. Now, I'm kind of confused with that.
That's not going to be the case with an irrevocable trust.
Okay.
That's why you set up an irrevocable trust.
Yeah, well, I understand that.
When you set up an irrevocable trust, there is no probate. Let me explain it to you this way. Probate, very simply, is a process that the government, on a state-by-state basis, handles because the title has to be transferred from the deceased party to the beneficiaries. So the state will step in for a very exorbitant fee and waste a lot of your time to transact that. A lot of people think that by creating their will, they've circumvented probate, or they've made it much easier. A will is merely a probate document. Your state's going to probate whether you have a will or not. Now, the federal estate tax is a different issue. When you create a trust and you pass away, the chain of title isn't broken. The asset was titled to the trust. The title remains with the trust. The trust, in essence, has already probated your estate because they've already determined who gets what. So you've eliminated probate. Then we come to the federal estate tax. If you've got an irrevocable trust that's been properly structured, the assets within the trust, I don't want to get too technical, are technically life estates. It's not the same thing as direct ownership. Therefore, there's no federal estate tax to transfer the asset. So by creating our Family Asset Protection Trust, you've circumvented probate and the federal estate tax.
Okay.
So 2020, the ruling 2023 would not apply to the irrevocable trust if it's properly structured.
Okay, I got you. Because I was just thinking that that's some way the IRS can get some of your money. That's all I was.
Well, they're going to try to. I think the way they're going to try to get some of our money is they're just going to call this ordinary income, even though the way that I read the code and the parts of the code pertaining to it refer to it as cap gain. Well, if the profit's cap gain, then it must be a capital asset. But somehow I think they're going to say, oh, no. Currencies are not a capital asset, even though you have physical possession of the currency, and even though the profit from a currency option is treated as cap gain, we're still going to call it ordinary income. That's what I think they're going to do because that's who they are.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Have a good.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hello, Jim. This is Doug. How are you?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Doug?
I'm going to go back to the BRICS issue. You know Jim Rickers, correct?
Yes.
Who Jim Rickers is? Okay.
Yes.
He had an interview about an hour and 10 minutes long with a lady the other day that was absolutely superb. He laid out the BRICS agenda and what they're going to do, and I think it's going to get some clarity to the people who are concerned about this, that there are 50 countries or so, but they have selected a top 20 that they feel are capable of being allowed to join this alliance. And what I think is going to happen, and what he thinks is that they're going to enumerate or just state who those top 20 countries are on the 22nd. One of them being Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, things of that nature. The other issue is that they have determined not by currency value, but by weight, that a brick is going to be worth 1 ounce of gold. So you look at that from a perspective of, if you see gold appreciating relative to other currencies, it's a brilliant move because they don't have to do anything. All they have to do is sit and watch where gold goes. And it leaves it up to countries like the United States and Great Britain and some of the other Western nations to try to, sweat out how much their currencies are depreciated against the value of a single ounce of gold. And so from that perspective, they're not necessarily saying that you have to have all the gold to back the currency, that a brick is just going to be worth 1 ounce of gold. So I thought that was really interesting. And if you have anybody that's listening, if they have a chance to go back and get into Jim Rickers' thread there on YouTube, phenomenal interview, about an hour and 5 minutes long. Go ahead.
I subscribe to him. I've actually spoken to him several times, but I'm so busy right now. I get so much stuff coming in. What the BRICS nation is really doing, it's a frontal assault against the Western central banking system.
Yes.
The fiat currency, the Keynesian economics, and countries like China, though, no, that's not a Western central bank country, they artificially devalue their currency in order to corner the global trade market, which is why China is, so many of our products come from China. They price us out. And so the beauty of the Basel compliance is currencies globally will now be based on the actual commodities, the wealth of the nation, and the ability to bring that to market, as opposed to arbitrary values created by governments to corner markets. So, but it's the Western central banks and the Keynesian economics that we've utilized for nearly 100 years it's finally caught up with us. We can't do it anymore.
Well,
$33 trillion in debt.
The brilliance of what they've done is that Russia is trading with India at this time, and they're each taking their own currency. So say India buys oil from Russia, and they pay it in rupees. So Russia has all these rupees, but they can't go to Argentina and buy anything with rupees. And so they've determined that that's not the path to follow, even within the 5 main countries of BRICS. So they've determined that they're going to not have a single currency from a nation like China with the yuan as the main currency recognized within the BRICS alliance. So they just said a brick is a brick. A brick is worth 1 ounce of gold, and you can take that anywhere. And I think that's really brilliant because it basically puts all the stress and strain on the Western nation's banking system to keep the value of that brick as low as possible, when in fact inflation and everything else is driving that brick currency to a much higher value. So it's going to be very interesting, but I don't think you're going to see on the 22nd, you're going to see definitive statements. I think it's going to be a rollout, and they're going to announce who is on the short list for admittance into their new club.
But with every iteration as they move toward this, it's going to have a negative effect on the U.S. dollar.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's what's being replaced. My only point about that is as an American citizen, I don't like to see that, although a lot of our problems were self-created. But as someone that possesses dinar, I do understand that the loss of value of the U.S. dollar will directly affect the value of the IQD.
Right.
So it's a mixed bag. It really is disheartening to see what's going on with this country. It's like putting a blind man behind the wheel and telling him to push the pedal to the metal. I mean, nothing good's going to come of it, and it's all unavoidable. I guess that's the worst part of it. It's all unavoidable, but the whole Keynesian theory is operate on debt. And when you operate on debt, you have to create more money. And if you create more money, the money becomes worth less. So the Keynesian model, the central bank model, the fiat currency always ends up being worth nothing. And that's unfortunately
never changed. Hasn't changed since the Romans when they started putting tin in their silver and brass in their gold coins. Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, that was just a really unique point that he made, Mr. Rickers, and it was a wonderful interview, and I just thought he laid it out so succinctly about what's coming, and that it's going to be a peg is going to fall, a peg is going to fall, a peg is going to fall, but I don't think it's going to be a windfall on the 22nd.
Well, if I only could listen to one guy about global currencies, it would be him.
Yes, yeah. I like Jim Rogers as well, but Rickers is just
like I said. If I could only pick one, it would be him. He's the real deal.
He's the real deal. Thank you so much.
Sure.
We'll see what happens within the next September. That doesn't leave us much time, unfortunately. We're 45 days out. Pardon me?
We don't have much time. I'm ready to move on.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that have to be taken care of, and the more time we have, also it gives the more time that the currency is on the Forex for things to happen. And I think that's an important aspect of it.
Well, like I said, Soudani's got his hair on fire to get this done. Maliki is gone. And Sauter hasn't had much to say, so that all to me bodes well.
Well, we've got 45 days left till October 1st or September 30th, so I hope something happens. It's about time.
Well,
thank you so much.
Sure, you take care. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Doug was our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. The things we've discussed are of interest. I certainly hope you'll contact us to get our initial no-obligation package. Again, as everything you need if you wish to proceed to establish your family asset protection trust. You can contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to assist you. Of course, our next call will be next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we'll be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and have a great week. Bye-bye.